All right, guys, I just want to go back to the Everything College Bowl podcast. Today, me and Nick here being our preview and prediction for Texas A&M versus Miami. Aggies 4-point favorites as they travel to Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. 49.5 is the total. 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time will be the featured game on ABC. Looking at this Texas A&M offense, obviously this is a unit looking to get back on track after a very poor 2022 season, Nick, where they put up less than 23 points per game, incredibly stagnant on the ground. And Bobby Petrino comes over 52 points in the debut against New Mexico. They're able to air it out a good bit, showcase some solid balance as well. Only 134 yards rushing, though, but everyone else got involved. Ruben Owens, Levon Moss, Amari Daniels. We'll see who's going to be the lead running back. It's likely going to be by committee approach this season, I think. And that's where we're going to start, Nick, is this running game. They flat out disappointed last year. I said going into 2022 that I think that this offensive line is going to progress to a point where I'm going to pick them to win the national title in 23. And, wow, they didn't do that one bit. Bryce Foster in his few games was awful at center. Trey Zahn really wasn't all that great. Layden Robinson was a big disappointment. This offensive line, they have an absurd size, one of the biggest in the country. They have great talent, too. They drastically underperformed, Nick. They weren't very good in pass protection. The running game was just awful. Devon Achane, I felt like, could have potentially been a Heisman sleeper. And he did end up having a good season because he's a good player. But the offensive line, they were just flat out poor. And that's what really led to the demise of this football team. They're just flat out awful in the trenches last season. Big test here following a bad season. How's this run game going to perform? How are they going to look up front? One of the nation's best defensive lines, in my opinion, with the Hurricanes. Tough matchup here. How's it go?
I certainly like this by committee approach here. Daniels, Owens, Moss, Bailey all got good touches, good balance here. They all got a couple touches each. Owens, he's the five-star true freshman, has the best opportunity to be this total breakout guy here. Daniels, though, a consistent, solid runner. They are going against a very tough front seven from Miami. This is a unit that's very big, very good in the trenches, could certainly be an advantage for Miami, but I think this is a good running back unit. I like the by committee approach. I think they'll spread it out again, share the love, and that will certainly have some success for them on Saturday against this Miami team. I do like this running back unit a lot. I think they're continuing to improve throughout the season.
Chase Basantis at right tackle ended up getting the nod. He had 4 pressures against an awful New Mexico team. So, obviously there's still some concerns with some of these newer guys. The veterans they have here, though, they need to perform better. I'm not sure they're going to look in this game, but as the season goes on, I expect them to progress. Connor Wigman, a former 5-star, he got to go last year. They didn't fully unleash him at times, I didn't think. But he certainly did good on his performances, didn't really turn the ball over, made good calculated decisions. He was able to air it out, 236 and 5 touchdowns in this game against a poor opponent. The receiving core, though, Nick, they're a little bit better than we might think originally. Noah Thomas stepping up with 6 grabs, 74 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Nia Stewart, you wondered what his, production would be like coming back from a major knee injury. He was on the field a good bit, 40 yards on 3 receptions. And Evan Stewart balled out 115 and 2 touchdowns. This guy is phenomenal downfield, does a great job with the jump balls, acrobatic pass catcher with some very good balance. This is a pretty solid passing attack following the first game. Obviously, coming into the year, we were not very high on this passing attack because of the lack of weapons, and I certainly think that might be a concern for them. Moose Muhammad didn't really get involved either. He's a guy that had like 16 yards per catch a season ago. But with the emergence of Noah Thomas, Donovan Green still there at tight end, I think they're starting to finally maybe get into a rhythm in terms of established playmakers at the position. How do you think Wigman will do? Big test for him here in his sophomore season, where a lot of people expect him to really rise above some of those expectations and above how the quarterback position has been in the last couple of years.
Wegman looked good against token opposition, 5 touchdowns, 236 yards through the air, 78.3% completion percentage. I think he looks comfortable in the pocket, solid quarterback. Moose Muhammad, he's going to be a guy that can certainly break out. He only had 3 grabs. He did have a touchdown, though. Evan Stewart had 115 yards, 2 touchdowns, 14.4 yards per catch. He was your leading guy there. Noah Thomas looked great as well, 75 yards on 6 receptions. He was 3 scores as well. So certainly nice balance overall. I like what I've seen so far of this offense. We were worried about this wide receiving core. We thought this could certainly hamper this Texas A&M offense. It would be certainly the biggest issue for this team because it's not very deep. They really do lack that sort of depth and experience. Even after last year being a young unit, they didn't return enough and get enough experience back. But I was impressed against, a team in New Mexico that's not very talented, but overall I was impressed by what I saw out of this wide receiving core. I think there is some nice potential here and they continue to improve.
Last year, they hosted the Hurricanes, 264 yards of total offense. They were just not good one bit. I think the running game is going to be a little bit worse, at least in this game. But I think the passing attack, they play with a little bit more energy. They're going to take more shots downfield to the playmakers they have. Overall, I just really don't know what to expect, Nick. I'm going to ask you the same question. You're probably going to say the same thing because this is a big test for them. They were god-awful last season, beat up on bad opposition this past weekend. I certainly think they're going to be better than what they were last year in this matchup, where they only had 17 points and, again, well below 300 yards.
I think they will be better. I think they will be pretty solid in this game, but it's tough when they're playing against bad opposition. This is a really talented Miami defense that is probably the best part of this Miami team. So I am a little concerned for this A&M offense. I think they're continuing to improve. I think they'll be all right here. I think they're going to get this game. You'll see my prediction, and that will certainly back up what I'm saying. Overall, though, you got to see more of this offense. They need to continue to improve every single week under Pacino.
You're looking at the Miami offense. Shannon Dawson this first year coming over from Houston, taking over. Tyler Van Dyke. Pretty solid performance, 17 of 22, 201 and a touchdown. The one interception he had was a bad one. Didn't see the corner coming back across the field, and he was picked off easily by Miami of Ohio. This passing attack, they were pretty solid, I thought. They had a good job of distributing the ball. Finally seen some guys emerge. Colby Young, he was great. Housed the screen. It was like a 50-yard reception he took all the way to the end zone. 79 yards and 4 grabs for him. Xavier Restrepo, 5 receptions, 68 yards. And Jacoby George, 6 grabs for 56 yards. A lot of teams in college football this week, Nick, they used it as an opportunity to spread it out to numerous amount of different playmakers. Miami, though, they focused on getting those 3 of Restrepo, George, and Young all involved. They all were a heavy part of the offense. Those 3 had 50-plus yards receiving. I think that's certainly important, trying to build a repertoire with these guys heading into a game against the Aggies, who were number 1 national last season in passing yards per game allowed. Van Dyke certainly struggled in this game a good bit a season ago. Obviously, only 217 yards of his own. Wasn't efficient one bit. What can he do to be different in this one at home? New offensive system. I think he certainly has some confidence, but again, that mistake he had against Miami of Ohio can't make it here against the Aggies.
Certainly can't make mistakes like that against a better team in Texas A&M, because you're going to just get punished if you make mistakes like that. I think Van Dyke's a very good quarterback. I do like Van Dyke. I think he's a naturally talented quarterback. 77% completion percentage, 201 yards and a score, plus the interception in this game against weak opposition to Miami, Ohio, the Battle of Miami's. I think Jacoby George looked good. He had the most catches, 6 catches, 56 yards. Xavier Restrepo, he had 68 yards on 5 grabs. Colby Young, he led the team in yards per catch with 19.8. He had 1 touchdown, 79 total yards. They did find good balance. They spread the ball out here. I also thought the running back room was not bad. The run game was certainly sharp. There was some nice touches there early on. I think this offense had a nice balanced punch and can certainly complement what is a very talented defense they have in South Florida.
Yeah, the run game, they, again, spreaded the wealth in all facets. They had 3 different running backs that had 9 carries each, and then Donald Chaney had 8 and a touchdown. A.J. Allen provided some good reps. Mark Fletcher, the true freshman, got involved, showcased some nice physicality. I know a lot of people are high on him. And then Henry Parrish, more of a slashing runner, 9 carries, 90 yards, and a touchdown for him. 250 rushing and 3 scores. Early on in that first quarter, they didn't really run the ball that well. After that, though, Nick, they really established a ground presence. And I think Mario Cristobal, this is obviously a guy who wants to have physicality in the trenches, wants to dominate with a run game. That's going to be the goal here in this contest with a new look offensive line I thought was really strong. Obviously, coming into the year, I picked this team to make it to Charlotte. I think they're going to be in contention to win this conference behind this offensive front. Jalen Rivers, Javion Cohen coming over from Alabama, Inez Cooper. Those 2 veterans, and him and Rivers, they were looking really good. Matthew Lee coming over at center. Wasn't the greatest in terms of run blocking this past game in his debut, but he's expected to be a leader here, especially against a fiery A&M team. Has a lot of talent up front. And then, of course, you had that true freshman slotted in there at the right tackle spot. Francisco Moa, a 5-star guy they are very high on. Obviously, this is a guy who struggled, gave up 2 pressures, first career start. It's not going to be any easier here. They're certainly going to look to attack him, Nick. How can they try to avoid isolated matchups on Francis? Because I think that's certainly going to be a weak spot for him maybe in this game.
I think this running back room was good. Henry Parrish Jr. had 90 yards on the ground, 10 yards per carry, and a score for him. Mark Fletcher had a score as well on the ground. Donald Chaney had a score on the ground. So they certainly balanced it out. A nice attack there on the ground. I like that a whole lot. Yeah, the offensive line concerned me at times. Obviously, Francis Magoa, first career start, true freshman. He got beat on the right side in this A&M pass defense. Is very good, a very good rush there. They're going to get after him early on. They're going to challenge him. Anais Cooper as well as only a sophomore. So this right side, we concerned about it in the offseason. We said it might be a young unit that can certainly be picked apart early. They're going to face a tough challenge here. Are they going to be able to keep up with this Texas A&M defensive line that's very talented?
Yeah, I'd say on the PowerPoint that they figured to have a great matchup, and the reason I say that is 123rd against the run last year. Both facets for A&M were awful in the trenches, which is flat out embarrassing considering the size and the skill they have. They landed, 5 of the top 10 recruits in last year's class on the defensive line. And obviously, we didn't really expect them to get involved much as a freshman. But I think this year, we're really expected some of those guys to get involved. Shamar Turner is going to be a leader for them up front. McKinley Jackson as well. phenomenal player. This team didn't have much of a pass rush. They only had 19 sacks last year, Nick, but you certainly think that maybe attacking that right side could be an advantage for them just because they do have speed. They do have some twitchiness once exposed. A lot of those freshmen last year did get on the field. LT Overton, Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart. Those guys are really expected to crack down this season. They only had 2 sacks this past game, though. One was coming from newcomer Josh DeBerry, and Turner had another one. 10 tackles for loss, though. Edgar and Cooper was great at shooting gaps. This was something they certainly struggled in last year, though, was generating negative plays going against this offensive line. It's going to be interesting to see what they can do. If this is what hops off the plane, though, Nick, is this run defense from last year, this game's not going to be close.
They certainly have to step up. This defense looked weak at times against this New Mexico team. Edgar and Cooper had a good day. He had 3 tackles for loss, 8 total tackles. He was your best player on this front 7. Guys like McKinley Jackson only had 1 tackle, really wasn't involved at all. Shamar Turner as well. I need to see more out of him. He had 3 tackles plus a sack. Need to see more out of him. Overall, Walter Nolan, another guy who's coming back, returning. He didn't play a whole lot. Didn't look great during his limited snaps as well. So overall, I think it's concerning, certainly for this team. They struggle overall. Nolan had 7 total tackles. Want to see more out of him, certainly. This team needs to be better against this run because this Miami running attack is pretty good. They have nice balance here. They're able to spread the ball out. They have to find a way to be good against this, and they have to, it's going to start with attacking that weak side on the offensive line for Miami. If they can do that and find success, this team could certainly shut down the run and be a more successful unit.
Yeah, Walter Nolan had a great debut, especially against the run here for this season. Fadil Diggs, Shamar Stewart, though, very interested to see what those guys do against the true freshman 5-star in Milwaga. Look at the rest of the defense, though. The linebacking core, of course, we've been critical of them at times, but Edgar Cooper still is a former all-freshman type player. The rest of the unit certainly needs to be figured out. Teron York, Sam Matthews, who will step up there. Geronte Davis. It's obviously a big mystery next to Cooper. And I think if the defensive line's starting letting them down, then I think some of this youth might also cause some issues against the run, at least for this defense's downfall. I definitely like the secondary, though. It's set first ranked last year against the pass. Of course, a lot of teams knew to run the ball against A&M, so maybe some inflated numbers. I don't think so, though. They're really good. Damani Richardson coming back. He's phenomenal. Josh DeBerry in his debut after coming over from Boston College. 10 tackles, a pick, tackle for loss and a half, a sack, a pass breakup. He was doing everything for this football team, Nick. The Aggies, the rich get richer here in the secondary. Tariq Chappell as well. Obviously, the receiving core for Miami isn't all that talented, but they did showcase some versatility in week 1. They need to be sound tackling on the edge and, of course, downfield. They got to be good in coverage, and I think they're going to do so.
Josh DeBerry looked great, 10 total tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, plus a sack, 1 interception for him. He's a very talented player coming over. I think the secondary is a very good unit. Bryce Anderson's another talented player who looked okay at times. Overall, I think these guys have some good players. Anderson had 5 total tackles plus tackle for loss. Damari Richardson had 3 total tackles. So overall, this is a very deep unit that's going up against a Miami attack that has some question marks. They could certainly get a nice battle there. I like the secondary to succeed a lot here.
Looking at the Miami defense, they completely stonewalled the Redhawks in week 1. A lot of people thought the Miami of Ohio would cover, and this wasn't even a close game. This is an elite defensive line looking to lead the charge against an O-line that, again, has size, but they're flat out awful last year. And I think this is a great unit, one of the nation's best. Akeem Mesidor at the defensive end position provides a lot in terms of being a run stopper and the pass rusher. Leonard Taylor is phenomenal. They also pick up guys like Thomas Gore in the portal. I mean, they're incredibly deep. Najee Kelly, Jafari Harvey as well. This is a defensive line I'm incredibly high on. I think there's a lot of production that returned from them last year. That's certainly going to be highly impactful. I just want to see this matchup and how it goes, though, because, again, Leonard Taylor, Akeem Mesidor, these guys are going to battle for first-team all-conference, and I think they have nice depth at these positions as well that's really going to be able to battle this offensive line for 60 minutes and limit the run game. The linebacking group is certainly a position that was iffy coming into the season. Wesley Basante, though, he was able to step up in week 1, provided some nice impact for them. Francis Mawilga, he was the leader with 5 tackles. They're breaking him in. He's going to be a veteran for them in the middle. How do you expect this game to go? Because the linebacking core certainly still is iffy, but I don't think this defensive line is going to let them down any bit. Branson Dean, another transfer they picked up, was really good against the run. These guys are incredibly deep, and I think they're going to win this matchup for 60 minutes.
This is a very deep unit that is continuing to find their way. Francisco Moago, looked really good. He was your leader at linebacker, 5 total tackles, half tackle loss for him. He's improving overall. Akeem Mesidor looked good as well during his touches. He had 2 total tackles, limited, but he was a good player. You could notice him coming off the left edge there. I think Leonard Taylor as well looked good at times. So overall, I think this is a unit that's improving. This defense wasn't really tested against this Miami Ohio team, but there are some nice pieces here that can certainly lead to an improved defense. This is probably the better unit on the team compared to the offense. I do like what they've done so far. I think Mario Cristobal is coaching up this unit to be very talented.
Yeah, the secondary is certainly a focal point coming into this offseason. Added a handful of guys in the portal, gave up, 233 passing yards per game last year. That's certainly not a bad total by any means, but they did get hammered against Middle Tennessee State early last year. Drake May, kind of had his way with them towards the end of the season. They were more consistent, more efficient, but they certainly had their struggles at times. They certainly want to change that narrative. I think they're happy with some of these new guys they got coming over. Jaden Davis, Rashad coming over from Vanderbilt as well. To Corey Crouch, I thought, he played with some nice energy in the opener. Obviously they didn't snag any interceptions. They did have 14 of them last year, led by Cameron Kitchens. He had 6 of them. This is a phenomenal player. Him and James Williams in the back end as safety. These guys are really going to be the guys who are going to be tone setters for this football team. And, the size that Williams has for him to be able to play that safety position is highly impactful. And that's going to be great trying to slow down this run game because obviously Texas A&M, at the end of the day, that's what they're going to want to go with is the run game, and having a playmaking safety like that who can come in the box, come downhill, and make plays is going to be big for them. Cameron Kitchens, another one of those tone-setting type players. And then Jaden Davis, I thought he was pretty respectable in his debut as well. He got on the field for about 40 snaps. I think the secondary is going to welcome this challenge that they have here against a Texas A&M receiving core that doesn't have great depth, but the starters they have in Smith, Stewart, and Moose Muhammad can really take the top off of your defense. How do you think it's going to go all around this great defensive line with a secondary that has some confidence in the back end?
I do like the secondary. Jaden Davis looked good in his snaps, 3 tackles for him, plus a pass breakup. Kitchens as well. Cameron Kitchens is a very talented player. He had 3 total tackles as well. This is a unit that's very solid, underrated ACC unit here. I think they look good in this matchup. They certainly have some talented pieces. I like this Miami defense. I think this is going to be a close game due to the 2 defenses being pretty strong and the offense is having a lot of question marks.
Well, the team comparisons, I think the edge goes to quarterback and running back for the U. I think they're certainly much deeper at that position, even though they certainly are all going to go by a committee approach. Van Dyke over Wigman right now for me. Wide receiver, and I think Miami's certainly deep. Tyler Harrell's a guy who did end up finally getting on the field for them as well, so maybe they'll use his speed a little bit. But I think in terms of just the starting 3, the one the Aggies have, I think is one of the better ones in the nation. Offensive line for Miami, pretty easy there. I think this is just a much stronger, more physical unit compared to the disappointing Aggies one. Defensive line for A&M, they have more talent than probably even Georgia does. I mean, that's how loaded they are on that side of the ball. They have to come out and prove it, though. They're flat out awful against the run last year. And right now, at this moment in time, the Hurricanes, they have proven commodities that can make plays. Guys are going to be playing on Sundays next year, so I got to give them the edge there. Linebacker, I'll go ahead and slide it to A&M. I think that's probably more on the even side, especially considering how the linebackers played for the Hurricanes in week 1. And I think the secondary, Miami, I don't think they're going to be any slouch this year, and they obviously have great safeties, but I think altogether the A&M back end is just such a good unit for this football team. How do you see this one going in terms of tail of the tape?
I think this is an interesting matchup. These teams do have some nice balance. I think you hit it with here. I think, quarterback, obviously that goes to Miami. I think wide receiving room does have the raw talent with A&M. Defensive line is a very interesting one. I think Miami gets an edge, but the raw talent with A&M, they could certainly win that battle potentially.
Looking at the final thoughts on the prediction. Keys to the game for A&M. This might be corny, but trenches, Nick, because that's what they're supposed to be able to accomplish is strong assets in the trenches. They have not really been able to perform, so I think that's certainly going to be the focal point here. Obviously, you can say that for every game, but I think for A&M, it's going to be the most important because that's where they struggled the most last year, despite having the most talent on the team in those areas. For Miami, attack the boundary in the passing game, and then find that groove in the ground game. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do. I have no reason to suspect otherwise, even though some of that talent is starting to see more snaps for A&M. I think Miami's going to be able to get some yards on the ground and establish some of these longer drives. And I think Van Dyke's going to play a solid game where they're going to be able to, make plays with screens, find the soft spots in the zones. I don't think he's going to turn the ball over. 24-16 for me. Another one of those games. It's week 2. You don't know what to expect, but kind of going off what we saw last year. And I was kind of happy with the Hurricane defense in this first game and the versatility they had in the backfield. I think they're going to do just enough to get by high on this Hurricane team this season because of how powerful they are in the trenches, and all signs point to them having an edge.
I took A&M here. It's a very close game. I like Miami to score some points. I think A&M is going to dominate in the trenches. They're going to find that untapped potential and really get that opportunity to dominate. I also like Ruben Owens to have a big breakout game as well. I think they're going to attack that weak side for the offensive line for Miami and get after the quarterback, make Van Dyke uncomfortable. This is a very close game. This is an absolute toss-up. It could go either way, but I'm going to take A&M here to win both games in this home and home here. They do travel to Miami. It certainly is tough to play in Coral Gables. There should be a decent crowd for this after what was a pretty lackluster crowd for their opener on Friday against Miami of Ohio. I like A&M here. I think it's a good team on paper that's very talented. I'm very high on them. I think they have a great opportunity here to get a statement win for Jimbo Fisher and co.
Yeah, just another opportunity to learn a lot about both teams that I think can certainly accomplish a lot this season. So this is an important game. I think especially later on in the year, the winner of this contest could certainly be playing for a lot at the end of the day. This will be a fun one though on 3:30. Going to be a nice feature game there in the middle of the day. here in week 2. It's me for today's episode. As always, Nick, appreciate you joining me to talk the Aggies and Hurricanes.
I'm excited for this out-of-conference matchup. Should be an exciting matchup to see what these teams can do. We're really looking forward to seeing this on Saturday.
That's going to be it for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.